Hello, Ocean View fourth graders. I think you're really going to enjoy the project we have this week, which is working with our air dry clay. I have been kneading my clay, which means I've been working it with my hands for several minutes now. If your clay is extra hard, because this clay was from last year, and feels like you can hardly move it, you can have a little bit of water, put your fingers in, and just add some water into your clay. And you can keep working that water into it and using it until you feel like your clay is soft enough to work with. It's always going to be a lot harder to work with than something like Play-Doh. This is real clay, even though it's just going to dry in the air. We don't have to bake it. And it's real clay, so it's going to be a lot firmer than something like Play-Doh. But if it's just too hard to use at all, you need to add some water and work it in. You might spend several minutes kneading your clay. This is really good to give your hands nice, strong hand muscles, and it's fun. So you should have a large ball of clay and a smaller ball. I'm working on kneading my larger ball of clay right now. And I've been kneading it for, at least 5 minutes. And I suggest you stand up when you work with clay, because the next part we're going to do is called wedging the clay, or I also call womping. And I do apologize to any adults in your home, because this can be noisy. And what we're going to do is wedge the clay, or womp it, which means we're going to be throwing it onto the desk or the table, and we're going to do it 5 times. The purpose of wedging the clay is to get out any air bubbles. So once I've really kneaded my clay and made it so I can use it, I have to wedge it or womp it. So I don't want it to fly around the room. I don't want to throw it on the floor. It will get all dirty. I want it to land right here. And actually, you can put your piece of wax paper there to protect your desk. So I want to direct it down as if I am a major league pitcher and I'm trying to get it right there where the catcher's mitt will be and not anywhere else. So here I go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whew, that was good. Wow, you got to stand up when you wedge your clay. Okay, the next thing to do, we're going to try to make a coil pot today. So to make a coil pot, stand up, and I'm going to make my clay into a stick, like a short, fat stick, with my hands, just up here in the air. There it is. When I have my short, fat stick, this time don't put it on your wax paper. Put it down on a flat surface and use the palms of your hand, stand over it and press down. Go back and forth with your hands. And you see it's starting to get longer. I want it to be about this long, so I need it to be much longer and skinnier. So what I do is every once in a while I'll stop and go, where's the thickest part? That's the part I want to work on. If I get really thin over here, like on this edge, that means I've got to move over here or here, and I'm just going to put my hands on the thickest parts, and I'm going to keep going back and forth until I get a big long snake. It's not quite long enough yet. Now, sometimes when you're doing this, it breaks while you're working on it because it gets too thin or pulled out in one spot. If that happens to you, don't worry about it. If at any point you have a problem when you're working with the clay, you can just roll it all back up and start all over again with the kneading, step 1, and keep going. It's fun to work with, so it's not a problem if you make a mistake. It just makes it more time. Okay, now I've got a big long snake Wow, that's pretty long. I guess it's about 24 inches long. But I want to take my big long snake and I'm going to make a snail or a cinnamon roll out of it. So I'm just keeping it flat on the table. I'm taking one end of it, I'm going to pinch it together here, and I'm going to start rolling it tightly. Oh, uh-oh, mine broke. Let's see if I can pinch it back together again. This is because I have a very dry piece of clay. But I'm going to work with it anyway and make it work. I could add a little water if it's still giving me a problem. Okay, so there I go. Now I have a snail, but I have all this length left. This is the bottom of my clay pot. See the bottom? This is one my son made when he was in 4th grade. Now, hold the top of your snake in one hand and use the other hand to help it go in the right places. I'm going to try to work my way around and just lay it on, lay it on. Mine is not going very well because I had this very dry piece of clay. So again, if it's cracking, put some water on there. Okay, and I can keep going around and around until I reach the end. Okay, that's a good start to my pot. But now it's time to work on it. So, let's take that end and let's add a little water. I'm just putting my finger in a bowl of water and then I can control it little by little, adding water and pressing that end together. And also, if I have cracks, because I had such a dry piece of clay, I can add water wherever I see a little crack. And when you have your pot pretty well put together the way you want it, you can take something that's kind of sharp, like a toothpick, or maybe it's a sharp pencil, and you can draw some designs into your clay. Don't poke all the way through, just use them to draw on the surface of the clay. And you can make a design that way that goes all around the pot. I'm not going to bother making the whole thing right now for the video, but if I was doing this for myself, I'd make the same design all the way around and maybe add other designs too in other parts of it. And draw with your sharp object all around your pot like that. That's called etching. Okay, I'm going to put my pot aside. Oh, what about the inside? You can take some water, put it in the bottom, smooth it out. You can smooth the insides if you want to. Now, if at any point this just kind of falls apart or you feel like it didn't work well, just try again. So it's never a problem. Okay, that's the pot right there. And I still have this other ball of clay, my smaller one. Mine is very dry, very, very dry. So I need to add a little water. And I'm going to start again. And this time, I'm going to make a lid for my pot. So I'm kneading my clay, Do this for, about 5 minutes. Then I'm going to wedge my clay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, since this is going to be a lid, here's the lid my son made for his pot. There's 2 ways you can do this. If you have access to a rolling pin, I have this tubing that I use for a rolling pin. You could, sometimes we use rolling pins to make cookies, right? with my hands, I'm going to make this like a pancake, as flat as I can. If you have a rolling pin, again, using the palms of my hands, I'm pressing it. If you don't have a rolling pin, no worries. Just do it the best you can with your hands, but try to make your pancake bigger around than the top of this pot. Because you're going to have to take the top of your pot, put it upside down, take your sharp pencil or your toothpick or maybe a plastic knife or a kitchen knife even, if your parents don't mind. And I'm cutting around the edge of the pot like this to make my lid. Oh, there it is. My lid's on top. I don't want to leave it on there though. I'm going to peel it off because if it dries on, it might dry on there and never come off. Look at how rough the edges are. My cutting tool is not perfect, but that's okay because I can just take a little water and smooth it down a little bit, and I can make that as nice and smooth as I want to. And afterwards, I could take my toothpick or pencil, my sharp tool, and I could draw some things in here. Here's one I made a few years ago with a flower design on it. Okay, and I might be done with my pot and my lid. However, maybe I want to do something like this where I add little handles on or add some little knob on the top. If I want to add something with my clay, and anytime I make anything, so I have extra clay. If you have extra clay, you can make whatever you want, any kind of a little animal or a little person or whatever you want to make out of your extra clay. But if you're going to put two pieces of clay together, for example, if I'm going to add a handle, that would be putting one piece on another. If I'm going to add on, here, let me show you how I'd make that. I'm just making a little snake. This clay is very dry, so I have to add water. Okay, I can't just do that. Why not? Because when it dries, it's just gonna fall off. So I have to do certain things to make sure that these two pieces stay together. The first thing I have to do is kind of rough up the parts that I'm going to put together, which is the end of this piece, both ends actually. And they're going to fit on like here, so I'm going to rough it up there and here. So I'm going to rough it up here. That is called scoring, that roughing up. That's part one. Then a little water would be nice, right? Put some water on there, and afterwards, pinch it together. Smooth it and pinch it right on there. Now I have a handle, and when it dries, I think it'll stay on pretty well because I've scored it, roughed it up, I've added water, and I've pinched it together. So that makes it nice and strong. Okay, so you could do that on both sides if you wanted to. So now, if you're done with your coil pot and your lid, just put them down on the wax paper and put them away in a safe place to dry where, like siblings, your brothers and sisters aren't going to come and go, "What's this?" and knock it. Or you won't be tempted to play with it as it's drying, because it takes 1 to 2 weeks to get nice and hard and dry. And you don't want to touch it at all during all that time. If you make something and it does break afterwards, don't feel too bad. Okay, you can probably fix it with like Elmer's glue. But even if you can't, this is kind of for the fun of making it. If we were at school, I would have us paint our clay pieces after they were dry. And I do that just using watercolors. But I do have a special, I call it goop. And it's kind of a clear coating that we put on to make it stronger. I can't give everybody the clear coating at home. So we're not going to paint our pieces this year. But you are going to have the fun of playing with the clay and making a coil pot and a lid. And if you really like your clay piece and you want to send me a picture of it, you can send it to my email, which is mernst@ausdk12.org, and I will be happy to send you a note back telling you how much I like your piece. And once again, I'm going to put the steps onto the screen. There's a lot of steps here. In case you forgot how to do it, you can go back to this part of my video and you can remember what to do. Knead your clay. If your clay is hard, add some water and keep working and kneading it. Wedge or whomp it, which means throwing it on your table hard 5 times, making it into a short fat stick. This is the large ball of clay we're talking about. Then taking the palms of your hand and rolling it on your table until it's a long skinny snake. Make a cinnamon bun or a snail. Right flat on the table by rolling the edge together until you have a coil, and then when you have leftover snake left, keep going up, up, up until you have formed the pot. After that, you can etch into it with your sharp tool like your toothpick or your pencil and make a design into your clay. For making a lid, it's very similar. You start with the small ball of clay. You wedge it or whomp it by throwing it real hard on the table 5 times. Flatten it into a pancake, about 1/4 of an inch thick, kind of like a cookie. And make it bigger than the top of your coil pot. Then you can turn your pot upside down on top of your pancake and cut around the edge. That will be your lid. Use your toothpick or pencil to etch another design into the lid. And remember, if you want to add anything on, any 2 pieces of clay together, you score them, you use a little water, and you pinch them together. Then let it all dry. I hope you enjoy working with the clay. Don't get frustrated, because if it doesn't work out, just roll it all back up and start over. Enjoy time with your clay. Bye-bye.